Welcome to Theater Crafts, where we take theater memorabilia and make brand new treasures. So today we're going to take an old show shirt and we're going to create a Tic Tac Toe board. You're thinking, what? This is actually the sleeve from an old show shirt that didn't fit. So we're taking that, we've made the tic-tac-toe grid there, and then we're using rocks and we're going to create tic-tac-toe pieces. And I've put in theater images on those rocks. So I'm going to show you how to make this today. It's a really fun, quick activity, and we're going to get crafting just a moment. All right, let's do it. All right, let's look at the materials we need for today's project. So you're going to obviously need a show shirt. So here is a show shirt. I've actually used it for a couple of projects already, but it's going to be perfect for the bag for our tic-tac-toe board. You're going to need a piece of copy paper and a piece of tissue paper that you cut just smaller than the copy paper. You want to also iron this tissue paper so it's nice and flat. I used my little iron here, my little craft iron, so that it will go through the printer easily. I am going to tape that down, and I'll talk about that in a little bit. I do have an ironing, just kind of a mat here. You need a good pair of scissors. Obviously, you need your rocks. Now, you can get rocks anywhere. You can get rocks for painting anywhere. I actually got these, I'm not kidding you, right out of my yard. So I have a path that has rocks on it, and so I just went and grabbed some rocks that were kind of flat and around the same size. You want about, like 10 of them or so. You're going to want to paint those. I'm going to use just an acrylic white craft paint and obviously a paintbrush to go with them. But once you paint them, you want to have kind of a neutral color for your background, but then you could actually embellish them with other paint, or you could use something like these markers, which would be really fun to embellish. And then you're going to need some sort of Mod Podge, something to adhere the image onto the rocks, and you'll see what I'm talking about. This is an outdoor, it doesn't have to be outdoor, it could be any kind, but this happens to be what I have. And then I'm actually going to use the Cricut vinyl here to iron on the tic-tac-toe board onto the bag. But you could use the markers for that if you didn't have anything like this. So those are basically our materials. So let me clear the space and we'll get started. All right, we are just going to get started with painting our rocks. So I'm literally just going to give them a coat of paint, let it dry, do the other side, and go back to the original side if I feel like it needs another coat. But this is sloppy and kind of fun for young children to do. This would be a great activity class project or club project, or doing with your friends. This would be really kind of a fun way to incorporate. This would be really a great activity for quiet time before a show. If you want to bring your your tic-tac-toe game. You could also do this for like a summer camp. Would be really fun. So lots of options here. So I'm going to paint these. I'm going to do both sides, and I'll be right back. Okay, I have a coat of paint on the rocks, and I'm letting those dry. And while they're drying, we're going to make the pouch. So again, you're going to take a shirt that is a show shirt, and we're going to do two things with it. So on the bottom here, I've already cut a little bit here, but we're going to create basically kind of like a string, like a t-shirt yarn. It's called t-shirt yarn. And I'm going to cut this, I'm going to kind of lay it flat so that it's, what's so beautiful about this is there's no side seam, so this works out really beautifully. So I'm going to lay this flat, and I'm going to cut just, it's like 3/4 of an inch or so. Okay, and then I'm going to take this, and I'm going to, just because now it's one circle, I'm going to cut this, and then I'm going to stretch it. and it creates this like yarn. Isn't that cool? And this is going to be our tie for our bag, okay? So we're going to create the bag using one of the sleeves on the shirt. So, you know, this is what I think a child's, it's a small child's or adult small size. So it's quite a small shirt. So we've got a smaller sleeve here. If you had a larger shirt, you would have quite a bit larger sleeve. What I think I might do is cut up, I'm gonna cut up here and maybe make it like this, so that we get as much of the sleeve as possible. It's going to create a little bit of a challenge when we sew this, and I'll explain that in a moment. So I'm going to cut up there. I'm going to cut straight across just to get as much height as we can. There we go. Now, the challenge, what I'm referencing is, the idea is that we want to use this part of the hem as the casing that we're going to thread our yarn through. So what we'll do is we're going to sew, I'm going to go and I'm going to sew the sides here and the bottom. Now, if you don't have a sewing machine, you don't need to sew, you know, use a sewing machine. You could actually use needle and thread if you wanted to. You could even hot glue it. If you don't have a sewing machine, that's certainly something that would work too. I do have a sewing machine, so I'm going to sew this, and then I'm going to talk about the challenges of this section and how we can deal with that. So I'll be right back. I'm going to just sew here, and I'll be right back. Okay, so I've sewn the side here all the way down, and I've sewn the bottom. And if it's a little hard for you to see, I know, because it's black on black. But this, like I said, now we've got the base for our bag. I'm going to turn this right side out. Now, as I mentioned, we're going to use what is the hem for the sleeve as the casing for our t-shirt yarn. So I've got my t-shirt yarn here. I've taken a safety pin, because we're going to thread that through. But we want to create holes for the t-shirt yarn to go through. Now the challenge is we've just sewn here, so we're not going to be able to get the yarn through here. So we're going to put the holes on each side of this casing here. Now you only want to put it in the front side. You don't want to go through the back. So you want to be very careful. I'm going to pull that apart, and I'm just going to cut a little snippet in the front here. You can see that right there. And then I'm going to cut another one on the other side. And again, just in the front, not in through the back. You don't want to cut through the back. So then you're going to take your safety pin, and you're going to thread this through, creating up just, and this is the way, I mean, you could certainly, if you were creating this, you could create your own casing, but this makes it so much easier. Look at that. And you've basically created your little bag where you can tie it. Now you could, if you wanted, you could actually cut two on the other side and do one where it, actually we can probably do that. I can show you, let me show you in a second. All right, so I'm going to cut this. I'm going to cut this. All right, I'm going to make a knot so it doesn't go through. Make a knot here. Okay. So this is perfect. Like if you wanted to just do that, okay, you can do that, or you can go to the opposite side, and you can make. I probably should have done this before I threaded it through. I just thought of it just now. And I'm going to basically make two more over here. So make sure I can feel the two more over on that side. Okay, so do you see those? Let's see right where they are. All right, so now I'm going to thread my yarn onto this needle here, or the safety pin, and I'm going to do the opposite direction. All right, you're going to go all the way around. Now I'm going to have to go around this. I'm going to have to go out and in just because we have the blockage on the other side. Okay, and then in here, I'm going to tie this. All right, and then what will happen is we'll be able to close it like that. Isn't that cute? All right, and so then on this side, I'm just going to cut these down a little bit. And then tie those. In fact, even, because we're doing both, we could actually tie these together so they don't go through. In fact, I think I will do that just so that I don't lose them. Tie those like that. Tie these like this. You could even do this with the bottom of the shirt if you wanted to create, look at that. You got your little Tic Tac Toe bag. There we go. Okay. All right, let's move on to the next part. So next, I thought it would be kind of fun to put the Tic Tac Toe kind of graph on the bag. That way you don't have to worry about, losing a piece of paper. Now, you could also take another piece of the t-shirt and you could make that work. Whatever works for you. So if you remember, I have the Cricut vinyl here, and I just cut some strips, just based on the size of the bag that I've got here. But again, you could also paint them on with paint markers. That's, if you have fabric markers, you could certainly do that. I just thought this might be kind of a fun way to put these on. So I'm going to do the one side first and then the other side. So I got the vertical and then the horizontal. And I'm going to take a pressing cloth. So I've got my vinyl so that the shiny side is up. Okay. And I'm going to put that there. And I've got my little iron here. And I'm going to iron that down. So I've got the pressing cloth just to protect the vinyl. You could also put another shirt there. You could put a piece of paper there, something just to protect it. I just happen to have this in my stash because I use these frequently. Now, this is not quite the way you do your vinyl typically. Do you want to make sure you get this all nice and secured? This is obviously iron-on vinyl. They do have the other kind that you can just press on too. So you see that. Now I do need to take off the backing here. So just want to make sure that it's adhered. And then the shiny part is a backing. And so I'm using my weeding tool here to see if I can get it inside. To get that backing off. It's kind of the trickiest part, I'm going to be honest, because normally you would do it a little bit differently than this. You would weed it the other way around. Come on. I don't want to damage the... Oh, no, there it is. Okay, so you see that? And you can just pull that right off. All right, normally you would weed it a little bit differently than this in a regular setting. But there we go. All right, so we've got the two lines there, and then I'm going to do the other two exactly the same way, but going horizontally. Okay. Very cute. All right, so I'll do the other two and I'll be right back. And here it is with both sides done. That looks adorable. And you could even on the other side, maybe with a paint pen, you could write the name of the show or the name of, the group that you're with, anything like that. That would be really fun. All right, so we're going to put the bag aside, and I'm going to show you what I did here with the images. So I decided to do theater masks and stars for the images to go on our Tic Tac Toe pieces. So if you remember at the beginning, I had a piece of copy paper and a piece of tissue paper. I just taped, you can see along the edge, I taped the tissue paper right onto the copy paper so that it would go through the copier pretty easily. And then I actually went into Canva and just found a couple of images that I liked. So I've got the images here, and I've got the stars here. And basically I printed out 6. You don't need that many for what we're doing. And I did print it out on the best setting so that you would get a crisp look. Now I'm going to cut them out, and we are going to put them onto our rocks. But we want to make sure that, now if you notice here, they're approximately, about a ½ inch. I chose to make them about a ½ inch just because of the size of the rocks that we have. So you want to make sure you size that appropriately for the pieces that you have in your particular game piece that you're creating. All right, so I'm just going to cut these out. I'm still waiting for the rocks to dry. I've done 2 coats on each side, and they're still drying, so I'm just going to cut these out while we're waiting, and then we'll get those put onto the rocks. So basically what you're going to do is you're going to take your Mod Podge, which I've got my Mod Podge here, and again I'm using exterior, but you don't need to for this, and you're going to, now these are the rocks that I had painted before, and they're nice and dry. And I'm putting a layer. Now this particular Mod Podge is really thick because it's exterior, but you can use anything that will help to adhere them. You could even probably use like school glue or something like that just to protect it. So you're going to put the Mod Podge on, and then you got like a one-shot deal here because you want to make sure that you get this on where you want it. So you're going to put that on, and then just lightly with your paintbrush coat it, and then let that dry. And then I will coat the back as well, just to make sure they're nice and protected. And it also helps with the sheen too, because this does have a bit of a sheen to it. And so let's try another one. Let's do our star here. It could not be easier. You create your own customized tic-tac-toe pieces. And so what I'm going to do is I will finish these off, let them dry. You can even, at that point, you could take some of your paint pens and you could add even more embellishments onto it just to make them a little bit fancier. Totally up to you, whatever works for you. So let me finish these up, and I will be back in a bit. So here they have all dried, and I actually just took a paint pen and just added some just kind of lines around just to add some more visual interest for these. You could really add lots of details to them, but how perfect are these? You can just take these, put them right in your bag, and take them for your tic-tac-toe game. And you're ready to have a quiet activity. So I hope you give this a try. You can do this with many different types of images on your tic-tac-toe pieces, and certainly use old t-shirts. So thank you for joining me for this week's Theater Craft, and I will see you next week. Have a great week, everyone. Bye.